everyone, we're here to talk about the Coaction training course, the Passivhaus Designer qualification. So Coaction was set up in 2009. We're an independent and not-for-profit organisation, and we're aiming to train construction professionals to meet the climate emergency. Our courses are focused on delivering high-performance buildings that perform really well. We've got a whole suite of courses, and do go and have a look at them on our website. The one that we're going to be looking at today is the Passivhaus Designer course. So who are Coaction? Well, we are 21 trainers from across the UK that are all practitioners in low energy design, and particularly have come from a whole range of experiences and backgrounds. And we're here to teach you the experiences and things that we've learned. Now, we're lucky today in that we've got two of our trainers here. I'd like to introduce, first of all, Anne-Marie Fallon. Say hello.
Hi everybody. I'm Anne-Marie Fallon. I'm Associate Director with Archetype, and yes, have learned about Passivhaus in one of the very first Passivhaus courses in 2009 in Scotland that was delivered in the English language, where I met Nick and I guess a lot of the community of trainers that we have here on the course. And I really enjoy delivering that lessons learned and experience through the courses that Coaction provide.
Fantastic. And Nick, do you want to go on and introduce yourself too?
So I'm Nick, and as Anne-Marie says, we met in 2009. And it was an eye-opening course. It was the first time this similar course to what we're doing here. First time it was done in the English language. We did it up in Glasgow, and there's a strong bond formed between people. And it's really good sharing that knowledge since, and I've applied it to everything I do. So yeah, it's been really good. My background's mechanical engineering, nothing to do with buildings originally, but I've always been working with low energy. I worked at the Centre for Alternative Technology in the 80s and so on. So yeah, I've been involved with this for a long time, but it was the Passivhaus training that suddenly learning how to make things work. And I think it's the main theme for me.
Fabulous. And this is the kind of experience that we're going to be bringing to you guys, is a wealth from a variety of different sources of people that have been trying to do it and apply it, not just in terms of the products they're working on in terms of their profession, but also many of us have come from having done it ourselves. I'm talking to you from today from the warm Enefit office, which we completed in 2013. So we've got over 10 years worth of data of the energy performance of this, and we can talk to you about it as we really know it. We've experienced it ourselves. So why should we be bothering in the first place? Well, let's take a look at how our buildings are performing. I've got an example here from some primary schools that were built from 2008 to 2021. And these were all built for one council and all to exactly the same standard. Apart from, there are two that are clearly standing out, which are these two here. So this is their real energy performance. Somehow these two buildings are performing as per the expectations. All of the others, the energy consumption is much, much higher. So let's take a look at them. Well, they're nothing special from the outside or the inside. There's nothing particularly different in comparison to what they look like for other buildings. So why is there a difference here? Why are these ones performing when other ones aren't? There are a whole range of design-related issues that we see regularly. For example, something like this. Now, you may look at this and think that it's okay, but once you've done the training, then very definitely you'll be looking at this kind of detail and being like, oh, we need to make some changes here. In addition, this also goes not just for the building fabric, but also in terms of the building services. There's various things here which we would look at and very much want to change. And often the really high performance materials are being used in a way that means the actual performance is never going to achieve what the expectation is. This is the kind of thing that we're going to be linking up for you, is not just about the theory, but linking that very strongly with the practical application of it, with loads of experience from site. So why do Passivhaus buildings perform, and what should we be learning from them that we can take on to other projects as well that are non-Passivhaus? What can we learn from this? Well, the design optimization is a really critical part, working out what the important bits are that we need to go into our projects in the first place. And then proven technical understanding. So really that background of the research and understanding about what makes a low energy building, all of that goes into the training that we provide. And also the quality assurance. What do we need to be checking, both on site and in the design? Nick, would you like to talk about your experiences about the differences that you have put into place in your work since learning about Passivhaus and the kind of concepts that were brought forward on the designer course?
Well, that middle photo is interesting. It's a friend, Mike Whitfield, who I was working with yesterday. And it looks very simple. There's not much to see there. It's a rafter planted on top of the roof, and you kind of think, so what? But I just spent a couple of days trying to tape around rafters that came through the wind barrier, risk of water getting in, insects. There was a pit. We found a pigeon nesting in the insulation in one building. So it's that kind of level of detail, which when you see it, it seems really simple. But we do encourage people to bring their own projects, examples, and there's a kind of no blame. We share stuff, and we're not sort of trying to show each other up, but we want to learn from this stuff. We want to find easier ways of doing things. So the detail there, that's reducing thermal bypass. It's reducing the chance of water getting in. It's making it easy to do. But Mike did the same detail on the garage on the same project. No insulation, no heating. But he used the same detail because it was quicker to make it watertight, and it was an easier detail having done it. So a lot of this stuff is, so it seems really simple. But it's not, we know from our everyday work.
To Nick, what you've said there, I mean, I was just on a site yesterday, a large passive house secondary school project in Scotland, and the site manager was reflecting on the journey. They're nearly at practical completion, and as an architect, it's always really interesting on passive house projects to hear the insights of the contractor team. And it was really compelling when he said, we're just getting back to trying to do things right. That is what passive house is about for him. And we've lost our way a little bit over the last 10 or 15 years, particularly on the quality side of the building delivery. And we've seen that through, various construction scandals and tragedies over that period. And really, for me, Passive House is about reinforcing better quality, better outcomes, better construction, and better internal spaces for clients. And that's really compelling for me, as well as addressing the energy emergency and the climate emergency. We're actually delivering a much better quality product and trying to get back to a construction industry that's proud of doing that.
That on-site thing's interesting because we often seen as a passive house police somewhere when we turn up. It's like we're building control. You're trying, it's like dodgy MOTs. You hope they don't notice what you've done and you'll get away with it on a Friday afternoon. Whereas once people get it and realize we're all working together to try and make a better building, once they really get it, then they'll kind of ring you up and say, oh, I've found this better way of doing something, and they'll share things. And that's kind of that's the bit that makes it fun. I don't want to be the person who turns up who's just telling everyone they've got to undo everything. You want to move beyond that to working together. And the pride's amazing, isn't it, Anne-Marie?
Yeah.
People excited. We had one guy, it's the most airtight building in Britain. It's an archetype project. And the guy was really disappointed. He got an air tightness. The numbers may not mean anything to you, but he achieved 0.06, Passivhaus 0.6. And he was really gutted because he was hoping to get 0.05. He got no idea what that meant, but he was really actually quite disappointed. We said, you realize what you've done here. This is the most airtight. And it was quite easy because the design was simple. We worked it out with them. We worked it out with the contractors, the subcontractors. We had toolbox talks. And it was just, it was great fun. And then they had said, I've got to go back to just doing ordinary stuff after this, and was quite disappointed, really.
People are generally very disappointed. Sorry, people are really disappointed actually if they have to go back to doing non-passive house projects after delivering a passive house project. And it just shows the kind of extent of impact it has for myself as a designer or the contractor on site actually having pride. And we've heard of mental health improvement outcomes from some of the tier 1 contractors, even for their supply chains, about doing a really good job and being rewarded for that by that approval and quality assurance that comes with it. And yes, to go to a level of quality and detail then that isn't reflective of passive house, I just within my current practice, I'm lucky enough to not have to do that. But I think once you learn how to look at things on this course, by the virtue of what Sally has said about the technical side, the design side, and then how that kind of rolls out on site, I think it does change your perspective of architecture and construction for the better.
I mean, it's probably worth saying that not all passive house projects are that smooth. There's certainly ones where people have done them and said, we're never doing this again. But again, that's kind of the thing we want to bring to this course. We want to try and say, look, you can use all you can apply the things you've learned or Googled and do it in a really bad way and use all the expensive materials, complex stuff, and all the passive house ingredients, if you like. And if you do it in a non-clever way, it just makes it very hard and very expensive. So I think a lot of the emphasis on this course, and again, having so many practical practitioners, we've got builders, we've got engineers, we've got architects, we've got some end user clients, and some of us are a bit of everything. That's really the practical angle, isn't it? Because we want this to be fun, and we're doing this for a while. We don't want it to be hard. We want this to carry on, and we want to enjoy it.
Well, okay, let's go on and have a look at what we get in the course. So there are 3 key ingredients that we're going to be delivering for you. And the first one is about a deep technical understanding. Now, you may look at this and be like, oh my God, but actually what we do is we pull apart the box, we unwrap it all, and we deliver it in a way which is really applicable. And alongside that, we also have a huge amount of real projects which we're going to bring to you so that you've got that opportunity to apply this stuff, okay, and really give it a go and understand what the difference is and scribble all over it, see what you can do to improve for exactly the kind of things that Nick's talking about. How can we optimize to make this work? And in addition to that, as Anne-Marie and Nick have spoken about, we're also going to take you onto real sites and give you real experiences of what things look like and the application of it as well. I wonder, one of the questions that I have for both of you is for designers where they don't have a client that is asking for passive house, or they don't have maybe they don't have other parts of the process where they're not necessarily looking for a passive house building. Why should they come on this training, and what can it give them in terms of the impact that it can have on their work?
I might go first, just from the architect's perspective. I think it gives a robustness and a resilience to your workflows. So talking from a kind of professional context point of view, you know, the golden thread, the Building Safety Act, the additional requirements we have around higher risk buildings anyway, as practicing architects, if we're working at that scale, lends, you know, we have to lean into that additional scrutiny and quality checking and verification of our design and construction information. And Passive House facilitates that also really, really well. I mean, if we have thermal continuity, we usually have fire barrier and cavity barrier continuity because the material is one and the same. And of course, it's much more complicated than that in relation to fire compliance, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, that as a workflow, as a quality assurance methodology, Passive House we really can hook on these other quality requirements that we need as a profession, and we can have confidence in the robustness of details because we're designing out latent defects, we're designing out issues with maybe poor air quality or perceived health impacts if a retrofit is done poorly, for example. By having this knowledge, we are gaining much more advantage to deliver a kind of more efficient service, but also a more robust service as architects. And I guess, yes, once you have that knowledge, you'll look at a thermal bridge as you walk down the street or on a development that's maybe on site within your practice and think, oh gosh, you know, we could have, if I had that knowledge earlier, we might have been able to do something about that detail. And it's such a culture change. It's such a step change for the positive for the profession. And we can see the likes of Reba and others embracing that, recognizing that, and clients as well looking for and identifying opportunities to promote a fabric first approach. And Passive House is starting to gain traction in policy and in guidance documents from informed clients. That's really exciting. That really helps.
It's really great. But what about the situation? What about for people that have a desire to do better, but there isn't any client aspiration? What can this course bring to them? So us saying that Passive House is amazing, is fabulous, but is it worthwhile other people coming on the course where they know that actually their client base is very unlikely to ask for it? What can they bring? Nick, do you want to talk about that?
Just a separate, I suppose you assume there if the person coming on the course actually wants to do a better thing and the disinterested client. I mean, it's interesting, the first Passivhaus projects I did was with Archetype. I'd come back from the course, inspired. wanted to do this stuff, and we're hoping for a little local bungalow or something just to try it out on, nothing too scary. And the first projects that came along were 2 schools, 3 schools, in fact, with archetype. Now the client didn't ask for Passivhaus, they didn't know what it was, but director of the time thought, let's try this. They got excited. I managed to sort of spread the enthusiasm. So the client said, well, as long as it doesn't cost more, as long as it's as nice as the other ones you've done, as long as it works, that's fine. So we just did it. And I think, so it's kind of, that sort of addresses the thing about the client not being interested. I don't think the client necessarily has to be. But if you care about stuff and doing a better job, and also it was quite liberating, was not having to sort of, when you do have slight aspiration, either for yourself or the client, they want to do something better. And there's all this stuff out there. Do you do BREEAM? Do you do LEED? Do you do this? Do you do WELL standard? There's an endless list of possible things which you might dabble in, and they all have their advantages. But we've got a whole community where we're doing stuff which, as Anne-Marie says, improves the air quality, the health, the energy performance, the fire, everything indirectly, even just by applying the quality. And we can compare and learn because we've got one kind of community working on this together. And this course, uses examples of projects, and they're not just a random range of eco projects or just random projects. They're all kind of trying to do the same sort of thing, and they'll all look different. They'll be made of different materials. Some will be concrete, some will be straw, some will be mud, but they'll all meet the same technical standard. So it just lets us focus. And as Anne-Marie said, we improve every project rather than starting again with a whole new set of targets and ideas and things to get excited about. We're refining and refining. And then you can focus on the other stuff that matters, what makes the building great. And we don't have to think about, what insulation do we go for? How thick? What target do we do? What ventilation rates are good? It's a lot of that boring stuff. We can just sort of take it as read. If it's not fitting, if we find it's not working, we'll teach you the tools to question it. So, most of the time this stuff works, but you might get a building type where it's just, this isn't quite, this seems wrong, this is harder than it should be. And then you can go back and question it, and maybe you move the standard on. So it's not, it's kind of fixed until it doesn't work, then we can change it. So I think there you've got that international community working together on the same problem, really. So I find that really good.
Fabulous, that's really great. Anne-Marie, any closing comments on the content of the training or how you've applied it in your work, or maybe something else that we haven't touched on?
I think, the layout of the training, the diversity of the trainers that you get to talk to. So, someone that's very much building physics qualified versus somebody who's their hands are on the trades and they're on site every day helping contractors deliver. I think there's a real richness to the course delivery that the trainers provide. I think it's really critical that the trainers of a course like this are actually in the trenches themselves in various positions across the industry, learning the lessons, seeing where the challenges are, communicating that through the course delivery, and having the opportunity for feedback as well, so that the course participants, there's a really great open community that's encouraged by the trainers when you take part in the course to really share your background information, the context of why you're on the course, and perhaps even sharing knowledge about projects or issues that you're coming across as you're exploring this new area of information. So I think that sense of community across the course delivery is really, really strong. And of course, I have to point out Ingrid here, who's on the call as well. Ingrid is one of our key players in coordinating, organising, making sure that you're really well looked after all the way through the course, that you have access to all the relevant content and material, and is there always as a kind of backup person, key backup person to make sure your experience on the course goes really seamlessly. And yeah, I just think having the access to that experience that we can bring you is, I don't think there's any other course out there that's quite like it, with that breadth of trainers that can give you so many different perspectives, as well as teach you really competently and clearly the key learning outcomes of the course, of course, in order to be able to take the exam if that's something you wish to do.
Fabulous. And I think that that's replicated in the people that come on the courses, particularly it's designed to be as broad as possible. One of the things for us to achieve building performance is it goes across boundaries. So it's not just about architects, it's not just about clients, it's like that, and it's not just about services engineers or contractors. We need the whole team involved. So the course is specifically designed for that really broad range of backgrounds. Nick.
just as you were saying about Ingrid, it's easy to forget she's also an architect and a qualified. She's done the course. She's she's qualified as anyone who's completed it. So yeah.
Thank you, Nick and Anne-Marie.
Just
to say, yes, will be organizing your course. I'm your contact from Coaction. I have more than 10 years running and organizing this course. And yes, I will take you from the start of the course, help you to keep on track with the self-study, with the homeworks. We have exam-style questions set up until you complete the exam, the final exam from the Passivhaus Institute.
Look at the course in detail. We've got loads more information. Just scan the QR code to have a look at that. We have a new format of the training to make it much more accessible. It's now broken down, so it's only 2 days a week, where there's also a new shorter Passivhaus Institute exam. The time of that has been halved.